So a few weeks ago, I attended my first meditation retreat as a part of the clergy leadership cohort I participate in with the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. And for starters, I didn't previously think of myself as the meditation type. Slowing my mind to focus on my breath was usually a space that happened in the swimming pool. Nevertheless, I was eager to learn, and as Rabbi Sissenwein did many years ago, about the power of mindfulness in Jewish wisdom and the ways it might guide us in this chaotic world. And so as I left Logan for Baltimore, I felt that this might have been one of the most selfish things that I could be doing. How is it, when the world is on fire, that I could take 4 days for myself to meditate, to pray, to be silent in nature? How does that bring about tikkun, or repair? With so much suffering in the world, with painful news from Israel and Gaza, the weight and work is so heavy on our shoulders. How could I justify taking time for myself? But I've started to realize that in order to navigate this world, to bring forth more loving kindness, to pursue our values and affect change, we need to care for ourselves. Because that too is God's sacred dwelling place. What would it look like if more of us acknowledged and nurtured that inner divine light as a part of repairing our world? When we see the sacred in ourselves, we are so much more likely to see the sacred in others. And I believe it allows us to better navigate complexity and to not be so reactive. And so as I read our Parsha this week, Ve'et Hanan, my heart filled with emotion. Ve'et Hanan el Adonai be'et hahi lemor, it says. Moses says, God, please, I am pleading with you. Arba'ana ve'er'e et ha'aretz hatova. Let me, I pray, cross over and see that good land on the other side of the Jordan, that good hill country and the Lebanon. Moses stands on the precipice of the land, able to see it but not to experience it. And so one last time, he begs to God to enter with the people. Now I see this as a moment of extraordinary vulnerability for Moses, a leader of strength and courage who becomes humbled as God says no. But God does give Moses instructions. Go up to the summit of Pisgah and gaze about, to the west, the north, the south, and the east. Look at it well, for you should not cross the Jordan. Go up, Moses, God says. In the face of deep pain and sadness, take time for yourself and reflect. And when you are ready, give Joshua his instructions and give to him with strength and courage, for he shall go across the land as head of the people, and he shall allot to them the land that you may only see. Now, there are weeks when arriving at Shabbat feels like an escape we cannot afford. There's too much to do, too many things that need our repair. But our Parsha teaches us that we need repair as well. Most translations of Ve'et Hanan describe it as I pleaded, from the root Hanan, or grace. But it can also be better understood, I believe, that's a midrash in and of itself, better understood. It can be understood as causing ourselves to have abundant grace and compassion. And so here we are. We lit candles, we sang the words of Kabbalat Shabbat, we welcomed in Shabbat not just as a tradition, but as an act of radical care. Because caring for ourselves truly, soulfully, is not selfish. It is sacred, and is exactly what this moment demands of us. And this week, our tradition gives us a name for that care, Nachamu. Be comforted, says the prophet Isaiah. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, comfort, O comfort my people, he says. This is Shabbat Nachamu, the first of 7 Shabbatot of consolation between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. Because comfort is not passive. Comfort is something we cultivate. It's something we learn to give others and to ourselves, much like I learned on that meditation retreat. And so in the Talmud, there's a great story of Rabbi Akiva, who walks amidst the ruins of the temple. And he sees the devastation, the temple destroyed. And he sees foxes roaming through the Holy of Holies. And his peers are crying. But Rabbi Akiva laughs, not because he is blind to destruction, but because he sees something they do not. He sees a future. And so they ask him, "Why are you laughing?" And he responds, "Why are you crying?" And they said to him, "Because a place so holy that it says, 'A stranger that approaches it shall die,' and now foxes are running all over it, why shouldn't we be crying?" But Rabbi Akiva tells them, "This is why I am laughing. Uriah lived in the time of the first temple, and Zechariah lived in the time of the second temple. And the Torah connects Zechariah's prophecy to Uriah's. Because in Uriah it says, 'Because of you, Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the Temple Mount like a high place in the forest.' And with Zechariah it is written, 'Old men and women shall yet again sit in the streets of Jerusalem.'" And so Rabbi Akiva said, as long as Uriah's prophecy had not been fulfilled, I feared that Zechariah's might not either. But now that we know that Uriah's prophecy of the forests and the temple has come to be, it is certain that Zechariah's will as well. And so his friends reply with the words of Nachamu, "Akiva, you have comforted us. Akiva, you have comforted us." If the words of destruction have been fulfilled, surely the words of hope must come too. But Akiva's laughter is not disrespect. It's prophetic. It's resilience. It is a declaration that this is not the end of the story. And we also read this kind of comfort, grounded in hope, not denial, through Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning, when he wrote, "Humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. It can afford an aloofness and an ability to rise above any situation, even if only for a few seconds." Now, Frankl wasn't speaking of comedy, but rather the human ability to access light even when surrounded by darkness. And Rabbi Akiva's laughter, like Frankl's humor, is not an escape. It's their survival. It's their leadership. It's their radical care. And it comes from a place of nachamu. It comes from a place of comfort. So this Shabbat nachamu, we ask not only how do we repair the world, but we also ask how do we care for ourselves as we do this sacred work? How do we affirm that it's not selfish, but sacred and an essential part of tikkun? How do we protect the part of us that still believes in laughter, in hope, and in the promise of shalom? And for me, I begin asking these questions when I name pain and suffering and seek truth, commit to a vision of hope, practice self-care as a spiritual modality, not as a selfish act, but as an act of spiritual purpose. Because comfort isn't the opposite of action. It's what allows us to keep going. May we let Nachamu be our invitation this week to rest, to breathe, to explore the sacred within us, so that we can engage in repairing the world with strength, compassion, and our hearts still open to hope and shalom. Shabbat shalom.